जय राधा गोविंद राधा गोविंद राधे। जय राधा श्याम सुंदर राधा श्याम सुंदर राधे। जय जगन्नाथ जय जगन्नाथ, जय बलदेवा जय सुभद्रा। जय जगन्नाथ जय जगन्नाथ, जय बलदेवा जय सुभद्रा। गौरानिताय जय गौरानिताय, गौरानिताय जय गौरानिताय। निताय गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल। नित्य गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल। जय जय प्रभुपाद प्रभुपाद प्रभुपाद, जय जय प्रभुपाद। जय जय गुरुदेव गुरुदेव गुरुदेव, जय जय गुरुदेव। श्री प्रभुपाद की जय हो। हरिनाम संकीर्तन महायज्ञ की जय हो। मंगलाचरण चैतन्य महाप्रभु की जय हो। वंदे गुरुनीश भक्ता नीश मीशावतारकान्, तत्प्रकाशश्च तच्छक्ति कृष्ण चैतन्य संज्ञकम्। वंदे श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य नित्यानंदो सहोदितो, गौड़दये पुष्पवन्तो चित्रोषन्दो तमोनुदो। य अद्वैतं ब्रह्मोपनिषदि तदप्यस्य तनुभा, य आत्मा अन्तर्यामी पुरुष इति षोडशांश विभवः। षड्ऐश्वर्यपूर्णय इह भगवान् स स्वयमयं, न चैतन्यात् कृष्ण जगति परतत्त्वं परमिहम्। अनर्पितचरिं चिरात् करुणयावतीर्ण कलो, समर्पित उन्नतोज्ज्वलं रसां स्वभक्ति श्रियं। हरिपूरटसुन्दर श्रुतिकदम्ब सन्दीपितः, सदा हृदय कन्दरे स्फुरतु वा शचीनन्दनः। राधा कृष्ण प्रणय विकृति लादिनी शक्तिरस्मा, एकात्म भावपि भुवि पुरा तेह भेदं गतोतो। चैतन आख्यं प्रकटमधुना तदैक्यं चैक्यमाप्तं, राधा भावधृति सुविलितं नौमि कृष्ण स्वरूपम्। श्रीराधाय प्रणय महिमा द्विदशो वा नये वा, स्वाद्यो येन अद्भुत मधुरिमा द्विदशो वा मदीयः। सौख्यं चास्य मधुनुभवतः द्विदशं वेति लोभा, तद्भावाढ्या समजनीशचि सर्वसिन्धो हरिन्दो। संकर्षण कारण तोषायी गर्भोदशायी च पयोक्तिशायी, शिष्य यस्यां सकलां स नित्यानंद आख्या राम शरणं ममास्तु। मायातीते व्यापी वैकुंठलोके पूर्ण ऐश्वर्य श्री चतुर्व्यूह मध्ये, रूपं यस्योद्भाति संकर्षण आख्यां तं श्री नित्यानंद रामं प्रपद्ये। माया भट्टजां संगाश्रयांगसे ते साक्षात् कारणबोधि मध्ये, यस्येकांक्षी पुमुनादि देवस्तं श्री नित्यानंद रामं प्रपद्ये। यस्यां शां शिलगर्भोदशायी यन्नाभ्यजं लोकसंघातनालं, लोकसुष्ठुसुतिका धाम धातुस्तं श्री नित्यानंद रामं प्रपद्ये। यस्यां शां परात्मखिलानां पोष्टा विष्णु भारती दुग्धाभिषायी, श्रोणी भर्ता यत्कला सोडप्यन्तस्तं श्री नित्यानंद रामं प्रपद्ये। महाविष्णु जगत्कर्ता मायया सृजतद्यः, यस्यावतार एवामद्वैत आचार्य ईश्वरः। अद्वैतं हरिणाद्वैत आचार्य भक्ति संसनात्, भक्तावतारमीशं तम् अद्वैत आचार्यमाश्रये। पंचतत्त्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूपस्वरूपकं, भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तितम्। चैतां सुरतोपङ्गुर्मम मन्दमतिर्गति, मत्सर्वस्व पदाम्भोजो श्रीराधा मदनमोहनो। दिव्यवृन्दारण्य कल्पद्रुमादः श्रीमति रत्नागार सिंहासनस्थो, श्रीमति राधाशील गोविंद देवो पृष्ठालिभिः सेव्यमानो स्मरामि। श्रीमान् रासरसारम्भी वंशीवट ततः स्थितः, कर्षणवेणुसनेर्गोपी गोपीनाथ श्रीस्तु नमः। जय जय श्री चैतन्य जय नित्यानंद जय अद्वैत चंद्र जय गौर भक्त वृंद। जय जय श्री चैतन्य जय नित्यानंद जय अद्वैत चंद्र जय गौर भक्त वृंद। जय जय श्री चैतन्य जय नित्यानंद जय अद्वैत चंद्र जय गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। प्रभुपाद की जय हो, चैतन्य महाप्रभु की जय हो, पंचतत्व की जय हो, वृंदावन दास ठाकुर की जय हो। चैतन्य भागवतम मंगलाचरण। आजानुलंबिता भुजो कनकावदातो संकीर्तने पितरो कमलायताक्षो विश्वंभरो द्विजवरो युगधर्मपालो वंदे जगत्प्रियकरो करुणावतारो। नमस्त्रिकाल सत्याय जगन्नाथ सुताय च सभृत्याय सपुत्राय सकलत्राय ते नमः। अवतीर्णो सकारुण्यो परिच्छिन्नो सदीश्वरो श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य नित्यानंदो तौ भारतरौ भजे। स जयति विशुद्ध विक्रम कमलायताक्षण वरजानु विलम्बी षड्भुजो बहुधा भक्तिरसाभिनर्तकः। जयति जयति देव कृष्ण चैतन्य चन्द्रो जयति जयति कीर्तिस्तस्य नित्य पवित्रा। जयति जयति भारतास्तस्य विश्वेरमूर्ते जयति जयति नृत्यं तस्य सर्वप्रियाणाम्। वैराग्य विद्या निज भक्ति योगा शिक्षार्थकम् एकपुरुषः पुराण। श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य शरीरधारी कृपां बुद्धि यत्स्वमहं प्रपद्ये। कालनष्टं भक्ति योगं निजयः प्रादुष्कृतं कृष्ण चैतन्य नामा। आविर्भूतास्तस्य पदारविन्दे गाढं गाढं लियतं चित्तभृङ्गः। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। श्री प्रभुपाद की जय हो। दंडवत प्रणाम टू ऑल। माताजी दंडवत प्रणाम।
हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे। I chanted the Mangalacharan. Bhagavad Mangalacharan, who's going
Yes,
to
yes,
chant?
yes, Mataji. Yes, I did, Mataji.
So what's the words today?
53, Mataji. 7.53.
So we are in the 7th chapter, Chaitanya Bhagavad, 53rd verse. So we are seeing how the devotees, when they see the form of Krishna Chaitanya, the Bala Swarupa, they are completely enchanted. And now here, Vishwarupa goes every day to Advaita Acharya. Now the comparison of Krishna Leela with Chaitanya Leela with Krishna Leela is discussed. How gopis, they have so much affection for Krishna that they have more affection than their own sons. So this was astonishing for Maharaj Parikshit. So that is why in the 52nd verse we saw that how Parikshit Maharaj, he places this question to Sukadeva Goswami. How is it that they had more affection than their own sons? So the reply given by Sukadeva Goswami is, Shri Shuka Kohena, Shunaraja Parikshit, परमात्मा सर्वदेहे वल्लभ विदिता आत्मा विने पुत्रवा कलत्रः बन्धुगण ग्रह हैते बाहिर कराय तत्क्षण अतैव परमात्मा सवार जीवनस्य परमात्मा कृषि नंदनंदन अतैव परमात्मा स्वभावकरेण स्वभावकारणी कृष्णे ते अधिक स्नेह करे गोपी गणे श्री शुक कहे ना शुन राजा परीक्षित ओ राजा परीक्षित हियर परमात्मा सर्वदेहे वल्लभ विदितः Lord is situated in everyone's heart and actually super soul is very dear to all. Atma vine putrava kalatra bandhugana. What is the use if the soul leaves? When the soul leaves a son, wife, friend, then that body to whom so much of affection and attachment was there, that body is also taken out of the house. Now the relatives had so much of affection for that person, but the soul leaves the body, then the same body is discarded. Ataiva Paramatma Sabara Jivana. Super soul is the life of everyone. It is super soul who accompanies the soul in every lifetime. Everybody will leave and go. Everyone will throw us out. But it's only super soul who is the life of everyone. And who is a super soul? Sri Paramatma Shri Nanda Nandana. Who is a Paramatma? He is Shri Nanda Nandana. That is the son of Nanda Maharaj. Ataiva Paramatma Swabhavikarani. That is why the gopis had more affection. Krishna te adhika sneha kare gopagana, gopigana. So the gopis had more affection for Krishna because of his natural characteristics as the super soul. He is present in everyone's heart. He is the soul of everyone. Now the question may arise that the super soul is present in this world. But in the eternal world, it is said super soul is not there. Krishna himself is present. Super soul is not there in anyone's heart because their heart itself is in Krishna. Krishna is a super soul for everyone. So let us see Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's commentary. In the description of Sahuja liberation or merging in Brahman, the followers of Shuddha Dvaita purified dualism, except that the soul and the super soul remain together. Purified dualism, Shuddha Dvaita, which is the philosophy of Nimbarkis, Shuddha Dvaita. Sorry, no. This is the philosophy of Rudra Sampradaya. You can also say Vallabha Sampradaya. Shuddha Dvaita philosophy. So what is Shuddha Dvaita? Soul, super soul, they remain together. It is understood that from the Dva Suparna verse in the Vedas that the soul and the super soul are both present in one vessel. As soon as soul is bereft of the service of the super soul, he develops material conceptions. Although the soul and the super soul are both present in this world, which is manifested by spiritual potency of the Lord, there nevertheless remains a difference between them. Yet there is nothing abominable or inferior in this difference. To establish the oneness of the absolute truth, this non-dual substance has been explained under various doctrines. Shuddha Dvaita, purified dualism; Vishishta Dvaita, specific monism; Shuddha Dvaita, purified monism; Dvaita Dvaita, monism and dualism. So that is how Shuddha Dvaita. Shuddha Dvaita is Madhva Sampradaya. I was a little bit wrong. It was Madhva Sampradaya. Vishishtadvaitaha is Ramanujar Sampradaya. Shuddha is Rudra Sampradaya. Dvaita is Kumar Sampradaya. So in this way, what is been explained, actually both are pure. Not degrading or no inferior or abominable explanation is given. Shuddha Dvaita philosophy given by Madhvacharya. Both are separate. Though remaining in the same vessel, both are separate. Vishishta Advaita. Both have a specific commonness. You can say eternity, Sachidananda. Shuddha Advaita. Shuddha Advaita. Vishishta Advaita, Shuddha Advaita. Shuddha Advaita here refers to purified monism. Though one, at the same time, there is difference. Purified monism, they seem to be one. Then Dvaita Advaita, monism at the same time, monism means trying to make them similar. At the same time, there is dualism. When you say Vishishta Advaita, Lord is Paramatma in everyone's heart. Lord knows of Lord knows what is happening in your heart, my heart, everything. Lord is Paramatma of this universe. Soul knows about its own body. To one extent, it is Paramatma for its own body. But there is Paramatma who knows the soul also, who knows the desire of the soul. So to some extent, in this way, some commonness has been brought. The pastimes of the Lord with his associates further confirm the spiritual variegatedness of the non-dual absolute truth. The inferiority of material variegatedness has unreasonably and illegally attacked the impersonalist flow of thought. So here this line is very important. Inferiority of material variegatedness. There is variety in this material world also, but they are very degrading. And that has been linked with this impersonalist because they don't know Krishna has form, the soul has a form. There is a spiritual form, there is always a spiritual relationship. Because that spiritual variegatedness has been not understood properly, that is why the inferiority of the material variegatedness has been compared to the has been identified with the spirituality. So that is why what happens, they consider there is no variety. Why have this inferiority? Because that much only their thought processes go. A servant of the absolute truth who is expert in the conclusion of personalism finds in the philosophy of Achintya Bheda Bheda. Achintya means it is wonderful, it is inconceivable also. Proper balance in all the above mentioned pure conclusion of the Brahma Sutras. So to understand this is a very difficult subject matter. But a person who understands that Krishna has a form, it becomes very easy to understand. Krishna has a form. Tatve vaham jatunasam natvam neme janaditaha na bhavan sarva vahamatah param na bhavishyami. In the bhavishya also this form is going to remain. So what Krishna is speaking, Tatve vaham jatunasam. So I am there in the past also, all these things are there, you are also there. At the same time, in the present also, we are existing. In future also, we will not cease to exist. That means we will be existing. So in this way, Krishna has himself spoken about the individuality of the soul. Nachevana bhavishyamaha. In the bhavishya also, we will be remaining. So one who has a proper understanding of the personalism has a proper balance in the four philosophies: Shuddha Dvaita, Vishishta Dvaita, Shuddha Dvaita, Dvaita Dvaita. First is Dvaita philosophy, then comes Vishishta Dvaita. That was the first philosophy which was put. Ramanuja put first philosophy, Vishishta Dvaita. Though, because that time, Advaita philosophy of Shankara was very, very famous. And people were thinking there is no difference between soul and the super soul. But then how to enter? He entered like a needle, a thread in the needle, but came out like an elephant. So this Advaita word was very, very dear to everyone. They were not coming out of this word Advaita. So then I added Vishishta Advaita. But there is Vishishta. Vishishta means something special is there. So if Lord knows about the whole universe, Lord knows about each and every one, the soul also knows about its own body. So slowly the Paramatma concept was extended. And then Atma, Paramatma. These two words were made to understand that there is a distinct difference. And even if there is a commonness, there is a Vishishta commonness. Then Shuddha Advaita, there both remain the same in the same bowl, but there is a distinct difference. One is master, one is servant. Dvaita, Advaita. So the qualities remain the same, but infinite symbol has been introduced. In the constitutional position of the Lord's associates, there is no motive other than service to Nandanandan, the super soul. In the other words, abominable mundane consideration of duality found in the imperfections and differentiations between the subjects and the objects of the material world cannot be equally established in the non-dual kingdom of Vaikuntha. See, the words are very difficult, but the thing is, it's a very simple thing to understand. Abominable mundane consideration of duality. There is duality. Duality means difference. Whenever this word duality means difference. Difference is there between the subject and the object. You have a subject, you have an object. Like he is playing with the ball. The boy is playing with the ball. Boy becomes a subject, ball becomes the object. So there is a distinct difference between subject and the object. But that cannot be compared with non-dual kingdom of Vaikuntha. Why? Because the nature of the ball and the nature of the boy is different. Nature of Krishna, nature of the soul is same. The nature of the soul is Sachidananda Vigraha, then Krishna is also Sachidananda Vigraha. That is why subject, object of this material world, there is the difference, but that cannot be compared with the difference of soul and the super soul. That is the difference. The super soul and the soul are related to each other as well-wishers. Let's see. They cannot be separated. At the same time, there is a difference. As soon as the living entity forgets that relationship, Maya immediately arranges for him various temporal relationships, like wife, children, the material world. So if this relationship with Krishna is forgotten, it's enough to be entangled in this material world. Mera bacha, mera pati, meri patni, mera friend, mera desh. So all these things come when a person forgets his relationship with Krishna. The deluding external energy of the super soul has two functions, covering and throwing. So deluding external energy, Maya potency, covering a person, throwing him out of the spiritual world, throwing him out of the spiritual consciousness. When the living entity becomes entangled in this material world, he falls under the control of the material modes of nature. And as a result of these misconceptions, he accepts various sense objects, beginning with a wife and children. So many sense objects. Senses, sense objects. Senses are attached to the sense objects. In this way, he is separated from the service of Vrajendra Nandanaha, absolute truth. From these misconceptions and forgetfulness of Krishna, the living entity develops the mentality, I am the enjoyer of all material tastes and forms, like my wife and my children. So much of hard work a person does just to give some small happiness to the wife and children. Today I had gone for walking in the evening, in the morning. I do for half an hour some walking. There, I saw a family is going to go now to a trip. And I was just seeing the husband comes down before half an hour itself, keeps all the luggages in the dicky, and trying, because so many luggages, balti, tub, because we take so many things when we go for yatra and hardly we use anything. Now it is not a spiritual yatra, now it is a material trip. In the material trip also, dunya bhar ka saman, everything will be there. And this bichara he is in a picnic mood. In the picnic mode, what a person wears: half pant, t-shirt, picnic mode, cap, some canvas, socks, and he got down very nicely and he was arranging everything. Somehow he's trying to sneak inside so many saman. And then afterwards, he went for, I think, for smoking. He went because the whole road was smelling. Went and came back. Then out of some, suddenly what happened was he took some kapda, started wiping the whole car. Now they anyhow they have to go, na? But he was cleaning it spick and span. Anyhow it was clean only, but still, he has to please his wife and children. He was so tired, fatigued. And then now the sun gets down. Then suddenly he remembers he has forgotten something. He tells his son. Son says, I'm not going to go. And son comes, a small boy, 10 years boy, maybe, comes in full pant. Father is in half pant, he comes in full pant with the cap and all. He says, I'm not going to go. He calls his wife, gets something. Then both wife and the daughter comes. He places them very nicely. So much of hard work. Just see how much hard work. 1 hour, practically half an hour to 45 minutes he has done hard work. Then the whole family sets to go for a trip. Hardly they must have reached the gate. Again he comes back walking because he's forgotten something. That is what happens. The moment we forget Krishna, we are going to forget so many things in this material world. Though we may try to give pleasure to wife, children, nothing is going to work out. There is only going to be a fight. Well, already they had started fighting. This you forgot, that you forgot. Let's see, this is a picnic. So this is what is there. People try to enjoy. And Daivi Shakti is so powerful. The thing with which you try to enjoy, that same thing becomes a cause of trouble. But this is not the constitutional duty of a living entity, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says. Serving wife, children on a materialistic platform that doesn't mean that devotees give up their children's duty. They have to serve the children. They have to feed the children. By serving Krishna, other things automatically happens. In other words, the living entity is awarded designations by the covering and throwing potencies of Maya, and he enjoys the respective results of those designations. But material conceptions are never able to touch a pure living entity. The eternal propensity of a living entity is to cultivate Krishna consciousness. A living entity accepts his material designations as himself because of non-devotional misconceptions. Under the influence of such misconceptions, the conditioned souls becomes impersonalis because they have stopped their identification with Krishna. That is why they are technically known as impersonalis, or worshippers of the impersonal homogeneous Brahman. While some are inclined to enjoy heaven or hell out of an intense urge for material enjoyment. When the pure living entity with material designations and bewildered intelligence becomes a Mayavadi, he is covered by the false conception of spiritual and material oneness, which produces a whirlwind of imaginative considerations of oneness between living entities and Brahman, and oneness between material nature and Brahman. So Aham Brahmasmi, if it is not properly understood, with understanding of personal aspect of Krishna, the same thing becomes an imaginative considerations of oneness with the living entity, Brahman, or material nature and Brahman. When the soul leaves the body, he can immediately understand, I'm not the body. If I were the body, then why did my latest attempt to return the 5 elements of my body to the 5 material elements at the time of my funeral? So that is why when we have some affection towards someone, we should understand that someone is actually the soul, not the body. Because the five elements, Vayu, Raniram, Amritam, Adhedam, Bhasmantam, Shariram, everything goes back to the same material nature. Devotee says, Om Kuto Svarakatam, Svarakuto Svarakatam, Svarakuto Svarakatam Svar. Don't forget, O Krishna, whatever I have done with the things given to me, that is the body itself. Since I am separate from my material body, after I left it, those related to it considered it detestful and wanted to throw it out of the body. How much attention we put in decorating our body, how much attention we have in seeing how many people love us, how much important we are in the family. But the moment the soul leaves the body, the same body is thrown out. Although the material world, which is created by the external energy of the super soul, it is not false. It is also not eternal. Just see, this is very important line. It is not false, it is not eternal also. That means it is real. What is real? The reflection is real. Sometimes the material world is said to be unreal. Unreal refers to, it is not the original spiritual world, it is a reflection of the spiritual world. That is why the spiritual world, the reflection is real. As much as the spiritual world is real, spiritual world, the material world, which is a reflection, is also real. The liberated soul and the eternally and materially conditioned mind both possess the sense of doership. Yet there is difference between the two. And here another word has been given that is subject to change also. So in this way, the comparison of soul, super soul, different philosophies which give a clear, distinct understanding about the purity of both. At the same time, monism, commonness, at the same time, dualism. Eho katha bhakta prati anya prati nahi, anyatha jagate kene sneha na kare. This, however, applies to only the devotees, applies only to the devotees, not others. Otherwise, why doesn't everyone show affection for Krishna? So Krishna is Paramatma residing in everyone's heart. Gopis had so much of love for Krishna. In the eternal world, the Lord is present as an enjoyer. Now in the Bhauma Leela, the gopis, they have so much of love for Krishna because at time Paramatma is present in everyone's body. In the spiritual, in the material world, Paramatma resides in everyone's body. In the spiritual world, Paramatma is there as an enjoyer outside. Like Kunti Maharani sees that Lord has entered the body of Uttara, at the same time he is present outside also. He is the same Paramatma who is residing in everyone's body. Kam sadhiha atma Krishni tave hinse kene purva paradha achetahara karani. Now there is a question which arises, why Kamsa had so much of enviousness towards Krishna because of these previous offenses. Why the gopis have so much of love for Krishna? Because they cannot remain without Krishna. Why Kamsa had so much of hatred? Because of enviousness. Why others don't have so much of affection for Krishna? Because again, it's because of their previous offenses. Sahaje sarkara mishta sarvajane jane kehatikta vase jibha doshera karane. Now, जीभारत से दोषे शर्करार दोषनाई अतएव सर्वमिष्टः चैतन्य कोशानी. So what is the fault of sugar? There's no fault in sugar. If a person has a disease, bile disease, then he cannot taste the sugar because the taste doesn't come. It tastes bitter. Sugar is always sweet by nature. This person is diseased. That is why. But there is no fault in the sugar. There is no fault. There is a fault in the tongue, but not in the sugar. In the same way, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is sweetest of all. Although sweet sugar tastes bitter to the tongue of one afflicted by jaundice, the sweetness of sugar has no bitterness. Similarly, there cannot be any lack of love in Sri Chaitanya Deva, who is a source of all auspiciousness. Those who cannot understand Sri Chaitanya Deva to be the worshipable Lord are in that position because of their offenses. In terms of his positions as the doer, Sri Chaitanya Deva is directly Krishna. But the material vision of the conditioned souls is infected with imperfection and ignorance. So they consider Sri Chaitanya Deva an ordinary living entity with anuchetana, minute consciousness, while in fact he is Vibhu Chetana, the supreme consciousness. So here we'll stop. Any questions you can ask. Any questions?
Yeah, Hare Krishna Mataji. Can I ask only two
Yeah.
questions? Simple
Yeah.
one. Mataji,
Yes,
you
yes,
said,
ask.
you said one statement. The moment we forget Krishna, we forget so many things in the material world. So what does the mean we forget so many things in the material
We
world?
forget the relationship of the material world with Krishna. That is why we start using the material nature we start enjoying the material nature. So we forget the relationship of Jada also with Krishna.
Relationship of material world with Krishna. That means that whatever is there in this material world, it is not for our SG, sense gratification, but it is meant
Yeah.
for the service of Krishna. That is what.
The first thing is our body itself. So we forget the utility of this body.
Second, the last question in that was what you were that big purport what you were reading 53 to 56. The deluding external energy of the super soul has got two functions. वहाँ तक बराबर है. Covering, वहाँ भी covering means sanmukhyatam. I mean vimukyatam.
Throwing out.
Our turning away. But you are saying throwing, and you said throwing where out of from the spiritual world. So my query is this: that can a person
Throwing from the spiritual consciousness, I said. Spiritual consciousness. Throwing from the spiritual consciousness. Dragging him in this material world.
dragging him in the material world?
Dragging him. Janma mrityu, jara vyadhi, dukkha dosha, darshan.
Yeah.
So in
So
this,
now
he's just dragged.
yeah, throwing him or dragging him. Because you said spiritual world, na, so I was asking the question that once when a person soul goes to the spiritual world, can he come back again other than for service of Krishna or taking part? Can he come back? Can
The
he
soul
be
is
thrown?
always in the spiritual world, but forgot his consciousness. Forgot his spirituality.
मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है माता जी के सपोज a person goes to स्वर्ग लोक, then after his all his piety and all that taken the reactions of all that, then he is thrown out of it, he's kicked out of the spiritual world, then he comes down as rain and the grains and all
One
that.
second. The soul is always there in the spiritual world. I'm telling something. The soul is always there in the spiritual world with a spiritual body. The moment a person has a tendency to enjoy and control, he forgets his divine consciousness. That is why the consciousness now, which is in the matter, takes another form that is known as qua soul. So, what is present in our body is the consciousness which emanates from the spiritual world. That is why purify the consciousness, purify the consciousness. So, what is present is the consciousness in the body.
Consciousness which is emanating from the spiritual world, because the soul is in the spiritual world. So that means whatever is in the material world, all these souls, we souls are all shadows of that soul.
Yes.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Thank you.
Yes. Any question? Okay, Aparna Mataji. Aparna Mataji. Your hands are raised. Hari Bol. So stop here.